The Yakuza, a syndicate from Japan, trace their roots back to the middle of the Edo period, emerging in the 17th century. They take great satisfaction in tradition, family, and upholding a rigid code of behavior, and they consider themselves to be an honorable and gallant organization. In contrast, the Japanese police refer to them as more Yakuza and view them as merely a particularly strong and vicious mafia-style organization. Don't forget to subscribe to Ancient History for fascinating insights into the mysteries of the ancient world and captivating historical narratives. The Yakuza were feared because they were really tough and did whatever it took to stay in control. They used violence and threats to scare people into obeying them, making everyone too scared to go against them. They didn't just stick to illegal stuff, they also got into legitimate businesses and even had friends in high places, like politicians. They were super sneaky and could get away with a lot of bad stuff. Even though they've had some setbacks, their influence is still felt today in Japan's underworld. The Tekiya and the Bakuto are the two primary factions that the Yakuza are descended from, and they were mainly from the Kyushu Islands. The Bakuto were gamblers who were mostly associated with gambling establishments, whereas the Tekiya were vendors or sellers of illegal products. And initially, the Yakuza name was connected to the Bakuto. At first, these gangs were thought to be nothing more than a dishonest gang of criminals that peddled phony and subpar items. They started arranging themselves into families, consisting of a father, referred to as a oyabun, and his sons, referred to as kobun. They began to organize themselves by the 19th century and became highly skilled at extortion, loan sharking, and operating highly successful protection networks. They quickly dispersed over all of Japan, where they were split up into clans, each with its own leader and a particular area of expertise in illicit trade. The organizational system, which resembled a pyramid, was intricate. The kumicho, also referred to as the oyabun or father, was at the head of the Yakuza syndicate. The officers were all those who trailed behind him, known as the kobun, beneath the kumicho. The senior advisor, or saiko komon, was the first. He had his own group of kids, accountant, and advocates. The second person in the chain of command was the wakagashira, who oversaw multiple gangs in the area and obeyed the kumicho's commands. The local boss, or the shategashira, held the third rank. The wakashu, or younger brothers, are the foot warriors beneath them, and below them are the shate, or elder brothers. Subordinate leaders, referred to as wakashu-ha, were positioned beneath them. The whole clan might expand into a big organization with numerous subfamilies if the kids start their own gangs. The Yamaguchi-gumi, the largest Yakuza family, was established in Kobe, Japan about 1915 by Harukichi Yamaguchi, and Kazuo Taoka completed its development following World War II. The Yakuza clans had grown to be strong, male-dominated organizations by the early 20th century. They had expanded into extortion, drugs, gambling, money laundering, loan sharking, bribery, smuggling, violence, and very successful protection networks. In addition, they operated lawful companies that mimicked the structure and procedures of big organizations, including nightclubs, security, insurance, and real estate. Before long, their combined illicit and legitimate ventures were bringing in billions upon billions of yen annually. Yakuza members were typically recruited from regular street thugs and were working-class high school dropouts. They were frequently descended from ethnic Koreans, or Burakumi, who had been marginalized in Japanese history. The Yakuza formally instituted a Sakazuki to initiate new members, during which they are required to swear a blood pledge of allegiance. The ceremony, which was frequently carried out in a Shinto shrine, involved giving a cup of sake to the gods, the initiate, and the oyabun, or leader of the Yakuza, a procedure called Sakazuki Keppu. When they sat face to face, the initiate received far less to signify their different position than the oyabun, who had their cup filled to overflowing. They were required to take a holy pledge promising never to divulge the organization's secrets, never to harm the family of another member, never to withdraw funds from the clan, never to disobey commands, and never to interact with the police or the legal system. Once you became a member of the Yakuza, you were expected to remain completely devoted to them at all times. They became your family for the time being. The Yakuza placed a high value on honor and devotion, and their code of conduct had become somewhat ritualistic. For breaching the rules and betraying the clan, there were multiple penalties. Kaiho, which resulted in excommunication and permanent banishment from the Yakuza world, and Sokai-jin, which involved removing the offender from the Yakuza family, but allowing them to return after a certain amount of time. The most well-known penalty for an infraction was Yubitsume, which required you to sever a part of your little finger and offer it to the organization's head as a genuine expression of regret. If additional offenses were committed, amputate more of the pinky, starting at the tip. Yubitsume, which is a harsh and lasting consequence of committing wrong, served as a potent deterrent to betraying the Yakuza family. It can also be applied to prevent disputes. Members of the group also wore lapel badges featuring their clan or headquarters logos. Additionally, Irizumi played a significant role in Yakuza culture. The group member with the intricate full-body tattoo was located here. Snakes, tigers, koi, and dragons were common designs. It was a very costly and painful procedure, done by experienced tattoo artists with bamboo needles that had been sharpened. It could take several years to finish the process since it was so complex. In an attempt to make a good impression on Western powers, the Japanese government outlawed tattoos during the Meiji period. Yet the practice persisted underground and quickly came to be connected with criminal activity. In fact, tattoos would come to be associated with the Yakuza to such an extent that public hot springs and gyms began to prohibit patrons with tattoos, a policy that is still in place today. By the 1970s, the Yakuza had become so entrenched in Japanese society and even reached the highest echelons of the government that they were linked to a bribery scandal between the Japanese Prime Minister and the US Lockheed firm. Strong Yakuza figure Yoshio Kodama is alleged to have served as a consultant and arranged a $3 million bribe to persuade the Japanese to purchase several F-104 Starfighter jet aircraft and Lockheed L-1011 TriStar passenger jets. Japan's economy flourished in the 1980s thanks to significant exports to the United States and Europe. The Yakuza took swift advantage of the opportunities presented by this increased riches. But this also caused internal strife among the many factions. These were usually brief disputes, though they might get very violent at times. This time, it swiftly turned into open, uncontrolled warfare for the cops, and the sides didn't seem to care who they wounded in the process. The situation in the Japanese city of Fukuoka spiraled out of control as gunfights between the opposing factions frequently resulted in civilian casualties. As a result of the police's tough stance against the Yakuza, a nationwide crackdown was launched, which not only resulted in a public truce between the warring groups, but also signaled the beginning of the Yakuza's decline in influence and power. The Yakuza had changed with the times by the 1990s, becoming considerably more global in nature, forming connections with several Chinese, Vietnamese, and Korean triad gangs, and controlling the Asian market for illicit handguns and people trafficking. The Yakuza rarely engage in internal conflict because they believe it undermines their reputation as a cohesive group and is ineffective. However, there was bloodshed in 2007 between two strong factions. One group used motorcycle-riding gunmen to attack Ryoichi Sasakawa, a prominent senior member of the Sumiyoshi Kai, the second largest Yakuza family, and kill him. However, a fierce police raid prevented the violence from getting much worse. The number of Yakuza clan members has drastically decreased over the past few decades, from as high as 250,000 at its height. There have been laws against doing business with the Yakuza since 2011. Yakuza exclusion ordinances have also been implemented, altering mindsets, with the goal of severing residents' ties to the Yakuza. They have been severely impacted by ongoing police crackdowns and the enactment of numerous anti-corruption measures in Japan. This does not, however, imply that they are no longer a formidable force. That's all for this video. We will be back soon with another informative video. Don't forget to like and share this video. To keep exploring ancient history together, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Until next time!